Part 2. Can't we all just get along? Proper agreement in English grammar.
In grammar, proper agreement just means that things hook up correctly in a sentence.
Failing to make sure the words in your sentences hook up is just like dressing in both plaids and stripes. And you wouldn't do that unless you were some kind of weirdo.
The agreements we're concerned about are subject-verb agreement, noun-pronoun agreement, and a special case of adjective-noun agreement, the proper use of articles. We'll look at subject-verb agreement first.
Section A, subject-verb agreement.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this section, we need a little refresher course on how subjects and verbs are supposed to work together. Basically, they must agree. They must agree.
In a sentence, the subject is the noun that performs the action, whatever the action may be. And the verb, that's the action, the zing of the sentence. When these two come together, they should have the proper form. What's the proper form, you ask? Well, Sparky, it depends on what the subject of the sentence is. Remember, the subject determines the form of the verb we need to use.
Let's look at some of the different kinds of subjects there can be. For instance, the personal pronouns. The personal pronouns are great because by discussing them, we can discuss all the possible verb forms there are.
We can have the singular subjects I, you, he, she, and it. The plural subjects are we and they.
So as you can see, we can have either singular or plural subjects in the sentences we write. The grammar experts call this concept a subject's number. If we use either I, you, he, she, or it, well then, our subject's number is singular. If we use either we or they, then our number is plural. Now, it's not like all these nouns are on some team together and they all need different numbers like 88, 12, or 26. Remember, a noun's number is either singular or plural.
That sounds like a good rule. Let's call it a grammar guide.
The grammar guide, then, is that a subject's number is either singular or plural. That's it.
The noun that we care about in a sentence is the subject. This is the important one. It's the noun that performs the action, and the subject is the noun that gets hooked up with the verb. Our little verby must fit in nicely with the subject, and that, in a nutshell, is agreement.
And our grammar guide for nouns and verbs is, the subject and the verb in a sentence must agree in terms of number. A singular subject takes a singular verb. A plural subject takes a plural verb.
This is how it should work in your sentences. When you use a singular subject, make sure you have a singular verb. And when you use a plural subject, make sure you have a plural verb. Okay, that's the way subjects and verbs should agree. But sometimes during the frantic pell-mell process of writing your ideas down, your sentences may fall prey to subject-verb disagreement.
Let's take as our subject Tommy and Belinda. Since there's two people, this is a plural subject. And let's take as our verb to dance.
We conjugate to dance like this. I dance, you dance, he, she, and it dances. We dance and they dance. Now, let's put our noun and verb together and see what's up.
Tommy and Belinda and dance. Tommy and Belinda are our subjects, so that means we have a plural subject. In this case, it's the same as saying they dance. So the subject is the third person plural, and the third person plural form of to dance is simply dance. Great!
But what if we wrote Tommy and Belinda dances? Well, that's not right. We have a plural simple subject, Tommy and Belinda, with the third person singular form of the verb, dances. The nouns and the verb disagree. As we just saw, the correct way to write this is Tommy and Belinda dance. Watch those kids cut the rug.
Let's change our subject now. What happens if we just have Tommy as our subject?
Okay, now we have Tommy dances. Whoa, our verb form is now dances. Why the change? Well, Tommy is our subject, so we just use the third person singular form of the verb, dances.
So it would be improper to say Tommy dance. That's not right either. Tommy is the third person singular, and we must use the proper verb form with it, dances.
Although in these sentences the disagreement seems pretty obvious, there are other sneakier sentences that can mess things up. Let's take a look at some.
Sometimes you'll find a sentence where the simple subject contains an appositive phrase. Remember that an appositive is a descriptive phrase that either restates a noun or a pronoun in a sentence or adds new information about it.
Like in the sentence, Dr. Frankenstein, the famous scientist, went down to the graveyard. The famous scientist is an appositive because it gives us more information about Dr. Frankenstein.
Using an appositive is a great way to elaborate on the simple subject. Things can get sticky, though, when the simple subject is singular and the appositive is plural, or vice versa, when the simple subject is plural and the appositive is singular. Here, we'll show you what we mean. Consider the sentence, "The stampeding herd, mostly anteaters and wildebeests, are destroying my eggplant crop." Before we go into how this sentence doesn't quite work, let's take it apart and figure out exactly what we're dealing with here.
The complete subject of our sentence is the chunk that performs the verb, are destroying, which in this case is the stampeding herd, mostly anteaters and wildebeests. Now comes the tricky part, identifying the noun that is a simple subject. Our candidates are herd and anteaters and wildebeests.
Notice how mostly anteaters and wildebeests is just a way for us to elaborate on herd. That would make herd the simple subject and mostly anteaters and wildebeests an appositive phrase, which gives us more information about the herd. But what we're really talking about is the herd.
So now that we know the simple subject is herd, which is singular, maybe we should take issue with our verb, are destroying. The herd are destroying. Does that sound right?
I don't think so.
Yes, I think we've got a little disagreement with the subject and the verb.
Our actual simple subject is herd, but we were distracted by the appositive, mostly anteaters and wildebeests, which is plural. That's probably because it's easier to visualize and it's closer to the verb, but we need to stay focused on our simple subject, herd, and choose the form of the verb that agrees with it. One great way to stay focused once you have identified the simple subject is to remove the appositive. Then take the simple subject and hook it up with the correct form of the verb you're using.
Okay, if we remove our appositive, mostly anteaters and wildebeests, we just have herd. Herd is a collective noun. A collective noun is when we use just one word, like family, to describe a bunch of different nouns, like mom, dad, sister, and brother. By rule, collective nouns are singular, so our collective noun, herd, is singular. Let's connect our subject, herd, and our verb, to be. Since we know the verb should agree in number with the subject, we use the third-person singular form of the verb. We say, "The stampeding herd is destroying my eggplant crop." Now we just need to put back in what we had removed, mostly anteaters and wildebeests. So our complete, correct sentence is, "The stampeding herd, mostly anteaters and wildebeests, is destroying my eggplant crop." Now that isn't to say we can't be crafty and switch our sentence around a bit. We can make the subject the appositive and the appositive the subject.
Here's our new sentence. The anteaters and wildebeests, now a stampeding herd, are destroying my eggplant crop. Now our subject is the plural anteaters and wildebeests, and our appositive is the singular herd. Notice how we had to change the verb is to its plural form are to accommodate the new plural subject, the anteaters and wildebeests. Tricky, tricky.
As you can see, having an appositive that is different in number from the simple subject can cast all your plans for harmonious subject-verb agreement asunder.
For the sentence we just had, the anteaters and wildebeest, now a stampeding herd, are destroying my eggplant crop. We could have just ignored what was inside the commas, now a stampeding herd. That way we would have been just fine. So to repeat, to hook up the noun with the proper verb, sometimes you can ignore what's inside the commas.
Another thing to watch out for is when the verb and subject of your sentence are separated by a long intervening phrase or clause. Check out the following sentence.
The package, which includes 15 balls, 12 yo-yos, and 7 jacks, is almost ready to send.
Let's break our sentence down. What we have here is a dependent clause, which includes 15 balls, 12 yo-yos, and 7 jacks, injected into the middle of our independent clause. The package is almost ready to send.
Remember that an independent clause is one that can stand alone, while a dependent clause needs to lean on an independent clause for support.
Our subject here is package, a singular, so we use the singular form of the verb is. We have to resist the temptation to use a plural form of the verb here, which we might want to do since we're dealing with so many different toys, but you have to remember to keep your eyes on the subject, no matter how far away it is from the verb. Let's make it a grammar guide. To ensure proper subject-verb agreement, keep your eyes on the subject, no matter how far away it is from the verb.
Okay, we know we have to look at the simple subject to decide on the form of the verb. But what if the subject is both plural and singular? Before the room begins to spin, let's show you what we're talking about. Look at this sentence.
The leopard and the crocodile enjoy tasty tourists. Here we have a plural subject, since it includes both a leopard and a crocodile, so we use a plural form of the verb, enjoy. Not so bad.
Now suppose our sentence is, the leopard or the crocodile enjoys tasty tourists. Simply by changing our conjunction and into or, we have changed the number of our subject to singular, since either the leopard or the crocodile will enjoy the tasty tourists, but not both. That's why we need to use the verb enjoys, a singular.
Now let's suppose our subject becomes the leopard or the crocodiles. Here we have two simple subjects, but one, leopard, is singular and the other, crocodiles, is plural. So what form of the verb do we use, singular or plural? It just so happens we have a rule to guide us when a problem like this comes up.
Whenever your sentence has two simple subjects that differ in number connected by the conjunction or, use the form of the verb that agrees with the simple subject to which it is closer. We can use a three-step process to help us out.
Step 1. Find the verb. Step 2. Find the closest simple subject. Step 3. Use the form of the verb that agrees with this simple subject.
So our sentence could read, the leopard or the crocodiles enjoy tasty tourists. Here, since the plural crocodiles is closer to the verb, we use the third person plural form of the verb to enjoy, which is enjoy.
Now if we switch things around and change the order of the subjects, well, we have to switch the verb to match. We could also say, the crocodiles or the leopard enjoys tasty tourists. Now that the singular leopard is closer to the verb, we should change the verb to its singular form, enjoys.
So, that's how you avoid the trap of subject-verb disagreement. First, remember to focus on the subject and not be distracted by all those other pesky nouns and appositives that can throw you off. Next, determine whether it is a singular or plural. And finally, use the form of the verb that agrees with that number.
If your subject contains two elements that have different numbers and it's unclear which one to choose, go with the one closest to the verb. Remember, it is only safe to do this when the nouns are connected by the conjunction or, and the noun you decide to go with is one of the simple subjects of the sentence. This is because the verb has to agree with the subject, not just any old noun you find.
Section B. Nouns and articles. Proper agreement.
Articles are those tiny little words we tend to forget about. You know, a, an, and the. These guys may seem pretty harmless, but if you use them incorrectly, they can get you into hot water.
We stick a, an, and the in front of nouns like when we say, I'll take a shower, I'd really like an apple, or please take me to the train station. Pretty easy, but many times it's not so easy. There are rules for using articles correctly in SEAE, but many situations call for idiom, not cut and dried rules.
Idiom is the grammar equivalent of tradition. It's the way we say certain things, just because that's the way we do it. A couple of general rules do exist to cover articles, though.
First, a and an are called indefinite articles. We use an indefinite article before an unspecified noun.
Say I want to say something about a car. I just don't know which car I'm talking about.
So I might write, I want a car. Here we've used the indefinite article a.
What if we want to talk about an airplane, but we're not discussing any particular airplane?
In this case, we can write, I want an airplane. Here we've used the indefinite article an.
The question is, when do we use a and when do we use an?
We use Big Mr. A before all the nouns that begin with a consonant. Consonants are those run-of-the-mill letters like B, C, D, F, all those, and so on. But we use an before nouns that begin with a vowel. Vowels are those special letters like A, E, I, O, and U.
Well, actually, you need to check the sound of the word after the indefinite article. If it has a consonant sound, use A. If it has a vowel sound, use an. So when we write, I want a car, we use the indefinite article a. That's because car starts with a C, which has a consonant sound. But if we write, I want an airplane, we use the indefinite article an. This is because airplane starts with an A, which has a vowel sound. So our grammar guide is, use A before all nouns that start with a consonant sound. Use an for nouns that begin with a vowel sound.
Let's not forget about our other article, the. The is known as the definite article, and we use it when we know exactly what noun we're writing about. So we can write, the ball is red, so we know exactly what ball we mean, the red one.
So, the way to use the definite article, the, is to stick it in front of the nouns we know definitely. Get it? The definite article,